Lexus GS250. We're gonna replace rear brake pads here. So what we've done now, jack up the car, put some stand underneath the rear axle, so it's all safe, don't rely jack on its own. And it's pretty standard, pretty simple brake change. Despite the fact that there is an electronic parking brake, you don't really need any software to rewind it. So first what we're going to do is just remove these 14mm two bolts, one at the top and one at the bottom here. There you go. So same bolt at the top and at the bottom, and as it starts turning we'll have to counter hold the nut here as well, because that's the pin that goes inside the caliper. If it's too stuck, we can apply some WD-40, let it soak in, and to the bottom one as well. So there we go. As it starts moving, sometimes this nut may be spinning, but in our case it's a little bit stuck. So remove one bolt from the top and one from the bottom. Now we can take a screwdriver or a little pry bar. Oh, it goes even easier than that. So this is our piston. We don't want to apply any pressure to the brake line. So for a moment we'll put it here, wait for its turn, and then we can remove the brake pads. Next thing we want to do is to remove these 17mm bolts at the back. This one here and the one at the bottom there. So these two 17mm bolts that hold this bracket, so we can remove the disc. Right, this bolt can be a little bit tight, but it's not too bad. That's one. And that's two. So with the last bolt out, we remove this bracket. We're gonna give it a bit of a clean. Sometimes new parts come with the new springs. Our parts didn't. So, but if they do come, you just pull this out and press in the new springs. So now we need to remove the disc. Normally you would have two screws in here, just hold it in place. So if it looks like this car doesn't have them, so maybe when they done it last time they decided not to put it in, so we're gonna leave it as it is. And this can be a bit stuck, so we're gonna give it a few taps. One more thing we want to do is push this piston back. I've seen some people pushing it with the fingers. I think it's it does go. If you have strong enough hands you can push it, but if you live in 21st century, I've got this little set. Check a link in the video description. I bought it on eBay for like no money, and it allows you to do brake job on any cars. Sometimes they sell just this bit, so you have pretty much, that's it. Sometimes it comes just like this. Choice is yours, but I prefer to have it a bit more advanced. Next thing we do is have a look at the underneath the bonnet, and you can see this is a brake fluid. You just remove this lead, and as you can see, brake fluid is pretty high. So as we're gonna push the piston back, it's gonna leak. So what we want to do to prevent brake fluid coming onto paintwork and all that, we're gonna apply lots of tissues here to catch it. So what you do here, you put it with this plate sticking into these fingers, and then you turn it, and that pushes piston all the way back. And beauty of Lexus, unlike some, say, Volkswagen, you don't need a computer to push the piston back. It goes all the way in. So make sure you put it, because you have put new disc, new pads, they are thicker, so you push it as far as it goes. So it's just flat with its casing. I will just leave it to rest here. Make sure you don't put too much stress on the brake line. And we'll give a few taps to the brake disc. We're gonna remove this rubber grommet, see what's behind it. Put some WD-40 through these little holes, so it maybe gets a little bit less rust. And then now you're gonna see why you don't need to rewind your electronic parking brake, because electronic parking brake for this car is inside here. It's like a drum brake. And now we'll take the disc off. And as you can see, this is your parking brake. So when you press your parking brake, this thing pushes us outside. These are boots, or whatever you call them in English. Sometimes you can get dust from brake pads here, so you can give it a good clean. And maybe to make your life a bit easier, apply some copper grease here in the future. It was applied here, but it still got a bit stuck. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna apply some copper grease here before we put new disc. A bit easier in the future, we're gonna apply a little bit of copper grease here. Maybe just push it all the way around. Quite often new brake discs come covered in oil, so we use some brake and clutch cleaner, link in description as well. So it just dissolves all possible oil and grease. You can do inner side as well, because that's the part for parking brake, and this is part for braking surface. And same on the other side. Put this back on its place, like that. So it sits happy. If you have screws, put them in. If you don't, just we'll have to leave it like that. Then we put this grommet back on. I'm exactly not sure what is it here for, but perhaps accessing parking brake. With a bit of a with a little help of screwdriver, you push it back in to its place. One more thing I normally do, make sure these ones move freely. They don't seem to be moving that well here, so we're gonna remove them. Oh, they started moving now, but they're supposed to be moving a little bit more free. So what we're gonna do, take these pins out, clean them, and lubricate them with the grease. But make sure it's heat resistant grease. I'm using something like silicone grease. It says it can hold high temperature because brakes get hot as you drive and brake. And then you push it back in. So this rubber goes around it, so it needs to be moving nice and free. This one doesn't seem to be so happy at the moment, so we're going to take it out and lubricate it as well. It was a bit hard to take this pin out. It had quite a lot of rust in there, so what we're gonna do is use some sandpaper to get the rust off, and then apply grease. And put it back in. Some people like to put copper grease inside. I don't think it's a good idea, personally. correct me if I'm wrong, I'm using just silicone grease because copper grease, as the grease wears out, bits of copper can get it sticky. So make sure before you put your bracket on that this all moves freely here. Okay, now we can take our 17mm bolts and put it all back on where it belongs. Make sure you start it with your hands so you don't break the thread, and then you can continue with the tool. And then you finish it off with the ratchet or brake bar. Make sure if your parts come with these springs, you just pull them out like that and then push them back in, the new ones. If not, you just install the original. There we go. And do the same from another side. Make sure there is no grease on braking surfaces. Now we're gonna put this caliper back on. Make sure that this brake line is not twisted. As you can see, there's like a little lines going along here, so that gives you a hint that it's not twisted. So you just push it back where it belongs. And if you come, your brake pads come with a new little bolts, you can replace them or you can reuse your original one. As you can start as you will start tightening this, this little nut here can start turning. So if it's turning, you just counter hole with the spanner. It's all 14mm and 14mm. They want to turn, so we all have it happy. Don't go overly crazy on them. They only hold pins. So about, I would say, with experience with VW, Volkswagen, they are about 20 Newton meters in terms of torque. Do the same for the other side, and before you go anywhere, press the brake pedal a few times to pump up the brakes, and be careful for the first few miles because they need to bed in. They rub to each other, disc and pads. Sorted. More stuff about this car, some other cars, see my website, wheelsandmotors.com. Thank you.